Hello everyone, and welcome to my presentation. My name is Kristen Wilson, and my presentation is on Native Americans. A little bit of background on Native Americans. Currently, there are 500 tribes in North America. Some of those tribes are the Cherokee, the Navajo, the Sioux, the Chippewa, and there are many others, but those are just to name a few. And within those 500 tribes, there are 314 reservations. One thing I found interesting in the narrative of the book was the difference between Native Americans and Indigenous. And the book really describes um, kind of the ill feeling towards the phrase Native Americans. It assumes that America was established prior to them being there. And as we know, that's not the case. So um, that's why there's the word indigenous is used as well. But some prefer to be called Native Americans, and it is more correct to ask which they would like to be referred as. As I was going through some of the characteristics and descriptions of their culture, it reminded me of the Hofstede model that I learned about in a different class related to cultural intelligence in the business world. And I found it interesting because this particular model, the Hofstede model, takes countries and scales them on these six different items. And within the United States of America, we have certain tendencies. But what I found was the native culture does not fit into that. So I thought it was interesting to point out and be aware of. For example, power distance. The United States is a small power distance country. However, the Native American culture is big power distance, meaning they highly revere people who are in power. Another example is individualism versus collectivism. The United States of America is a very individualistic society, but the Native American culture is more collective, um, as well as indulgence. I think that's another one, another uh, another area where extreme difference. The American culture is to indulge in extravagant, where restraint is they hold back. So just keep in mind, sometimes when you're learning about cultures, it doesn't necessarily speak for the whole of the culture. Some of the family and cultural values within the Native American culture. Family is foundational. The vast majority of Native people live in an extended family system that is conceptually different than what we are used to. It is common for generations to live together. They have a closeness within family, and they also have a sense of duty within family. So it is very common when a person gets married to go and live with that their spouse's family. And depending on the tribe, a man can go live with his wife's family, or in some tribes, the wife lives with the male's family. There's also a community of sharing within the Native American culture. Material possessions are freely shared and are expected to be shared. I found this interesting. There's an openness. Also, wealth is not important. They can go and work for a period of time, gain enough money to sustain them for a while, and then not work. I thought that to be very interesting. They also hold nature in high reverence, and they believe that it is their responsibility to live in harmony and safeguard the valuable resources they've been given. They believe things such as if a person is sick, it's because they are out of balance with nature. Um, they also feel a duty and an obligation to care for the resources in which they were given. Some of the characteristics that have negatively impacted the culture is um, genocide. When dealing with the Native American culture, it is important to understand the amount of death and um, extreme tragedy in which their culture has experienced um, over time. They've been brutally murdered, and they've also had their possessions taken away, their land, their home items. So with that, they feel a stripping of their culture and identity because their land was taken away, because the things that were important to them were taken away. It stripped them of the things that were important to them. Also, over the course of history, uh, the white population had tried to take their culture out of their culture. One example is they took the children out of the family and put them in boarding schools and tried to Americanize them. But what this did was really disrupt the that important value of family and closeness, and so that was removed, and those kids were robbed of that. One of the negative effects of this is there's a high instance of alcohol and substance abuse. The loss of identity has people turning to things such as alcohol and substance abuse, as well as the culture has an increased a higher suicide rate. Some of the themes from the interview that I felt were very important when interacting with a Native American culture, a lot of their root causes of their problems are from their loss of identity within the culture. They don't feel like they belong in any realm, and so when interacting, it's important to bring those elements back into the conversation. Also, it takes patience to build trust. Um, One of the characteristics of the culture is not speaking. And, this can be for several reasons. Either they're thinking or they just don't have anything to say. So if there's long pauses of silence, that's okay. Let those happen. It's okay to be uncomfortable in those times of silence because it's showing that you respect what they have to say by letting them come to you when they're ready. Another theme was that culture is a big part of healing. There are many ceremonies and things that can be brought into the healing process, and those elements make a person feel like they're seen. It creates a stronger sense of identity and really grows and helps them understand who they are. In conclusion, it's so important to understand the history. Um, a lot of times, at least I know for myself, I think I know the history, but then I go and look back and refresh myself, and it's like, oh, I. So it's always good to keep a pulse on history. It's you can't revisit it enough, but that helps you understand a person. Another thing, there are hundreds of unique tribes, but they all have similarities, and yet they all have unique differences. So it is important to understand what those similarities are and what those differences are. It is also imperative that one understands their own culture and biases so that when you're interacting with anyone from a different culture, you understand the perspective in which you are addressing it and can reframe to understand how what their perspective is. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and these are my references.